Hello everyone, today I am rewatching another episode of Twin Peaks and I'm on to episode 14, the fabled episode 14. I say that because the episode is a huge fan favourite and it appears at the top of a lot of lists of highly rated episodes of this show. So it's called Lonely Souls and it's directed by David Lynch and written by Mark Frost. You may already know that this is the episode where we find out who Laura's killer actually is. This episode is my favourite episode of Twin Peaks, simply because I think atmospherically it's completely on point. I think every scene is engaging in it, the way it's written, the way it's acted. Certain scenes are extremely, fantastic. Just like nothing else I've ever seen before. So I guess this is just to set the scene and also set the mood and to remind people of that cliffhanger that we were left on last episode, which it was hinted that the Great Northern was the place where Bob was in hiding.
Train tracks from the crime site were from a diary. Donna Hayward.
Sorry, my speakers were actually reverberating there when Lynch started speaking. That was pretty funny. I just have to turn this down a little bit. I don't know why, but this scene where Lynch addresses the men in the line, it seems a little bit like slightly improvised, as if nobody knew what he might say to them. That's just the impression I get from the reactions of the other actors in the scene. Okay, so we get this very odd scene in the Great Northern with the one-armed man being shown everybody who's staying there, it looks like, to see if Bob's inside them. And in the background everybody is very frantic and there is a lot of frenetic behaviours going on with people bouncing balls endlessly and making a lot of noise, and it's just there's a sense of disturbance in the whole scene. It makes you feel uncomfortable and it's almost like being inside the tortured mind of the one-armed man, because there is no peace, there's no calm. And of course we see this scene cut to Ben, look, framed by the corridors as if they're, the corridors around him like a frame, putting him right in the picture, and his cigar is glowing hot and he looks hell-bent on something, and the closer he gets to the scene with the one-armed man, the more agitated he becomes, the one-armed man. So it's pushing and pushing towards this idea of Ben Horne being the one that Bob has inhabited. And I really like the way that this scene with the one-armed man, we have the overhead view from the camera, and then we have the long shot pulling out, and it just gives you this sense of the turmoil that's surrounding this poor spirit, this poor guy as well. Like, who do Mike and Philip Gerard, this person, this dual spirit, I guess, is in torment. Harold's house, poor Harold. This theme that plays over when for Harold, I don't know if it's Harold's theme or it's very touching. It's a very sad song. It's like the notes seem almost to represent a kind of emptiness and a loneliness that summed up who Harold was, and to see him hanging there is just gruesome. It's horrible. We cut to the Palmer's house. I don't know when the last time we were there. It feels like a long time, but they make a point of showing you the Palmer house, the ornaments, the normal suburban household, and they pan right across it. It's like nothing could be more normal in this house. Leland and Sarah sitting reading the paper, and DM Madeline sitting with them. It's a charming scene. You get the impression that things might be starting to heal a little bit, just a little bit, for the Palmer parents. It's a very touching scene when Madeline says goodbye to her aunt and uncle, and it's basically saying, you know, I hope I've helped you come to terms with your grief, and that I've been some kind of support system, but now it's time for me to go. And it's quite sad. We see the men at Harold's house, and it's a hell of a scene. It's just destroyed. We can tell from the state of the place what Harold's mind must have been like just before he died, before he killed himself. And the men find a note on his body which in French reads, "I'm a lonely soul, j'ai une âme solitaire." I really like this bit where it tends to be a Lynchian thing with the lights, the translucent sort of lights, and they find the diary of Laura Palmer, the secret diary, the one that Harry sort of dismissed offhand when Donna mentioned it to him last time. And the moment of significance is whitewashed out in this searing light. So Bobby and Shelley are discussing finances, and I get the sense there is still a little bit of you and I, or Shelley and Leo and Bobby, because, you know, every time he's referring to their bills and stuff, he makes a point of it being, he makes a point that they're Shelley's bills, and also he refers to his mother and father, and the fact that Bobby thinks he can't keep saying that he is staying over at Mike's, and that perhaps that he's taken a step too far in getting into this adult relationship, which it's true. I mean, it's true, but only now when they are facing financial hardship, and of course the struggle of having to look after Leo together. Is he mentioning this? Is he it's almost like he's trying to find a way out of this, and Bobby thinks he's onto something, trying to find the money that he thinks Leo has stashed away somewhere. This look that Bobby has when he approaches Leo at the end of that scene is just classic. It's just complete disgust. Okay, so we see Audrey finally having this kind of quiet showdown with her father, and she admits that she was the girl that Ben tried to have sex with at One-Eyed Jack's, and I think Ben looks genuinely disgusted and shocked. It really does affect him, whereas so many other things haven't. Why is Ben Horn honest with Audrey? I think he feels like he has no choice at this point, and I also think he believes that he owes Audrey the truth. It's pretty disgusting actually to hear Ben say that he slept with Laura. You know, he's talking to his daughter who was the same age as Laura, and it just is very uncomfortable to hear him say that. And you know, when he says he loves her, we have this same romantic theme playing in the background, and it's a similar situation to like Dr. Jacoby, saying that he was desperately in love with Laura. A very inappropriate kind of love. An adult falling for a young girl. I mean, you have to ask yourself at this point, was this just because she was sexually provocative? Do they love Laura because they felt like they wanted to protect the child in her? It's a lot of questions about that. A lot of questions. But the one thing that I'm left with is it was wrong of Ben to have gone anywhere near Laura. You know, there's a lot of sad scenes in this episode. We see Shelley and Norma talking about Shelley. Shelley's saying that she has to quit her job to take care of Leo. And she's so distraught about this. I think it tells you a lot about how she views her place in the world, and the fact that she sees working at the diner as some kind of stable structure for her. that's her place in the world. That's where she sees herself, and where she feels comfortable and happy. Not just because it has given her financial stability or a purpose, but also because of her friendship with Norma and the interpersonal relationships she's had with anybody who's been a customer at the diner. And I think maybe there's a little part of Shelley that understands that Norma maybe needs a friend as good as Shelley. As I said previously, said that I don't think Norma has a lot of friends. Not like Shelley, not like a close friend that you can tell things. I think she has a lot of like people that come into the diner and see her as a stalwart figure, you know, but I think the kind of very, very close friendship that Norma has with Shelley, that's a one-time thing for Norma at the moment, and I think Shelley understands that, and that's one of the reasons why she is so upset at having to leave. Because we have Nadine and Ed come into the diner, and clearly Nadine's situation is being painted as a sort of comedic thing. Everyone's reaction to it is, you know, everyone's startled reaction, not knowing what to do, is sort of hyped up in this scene. Oh, shit. Sorry. That's pretty dramatic when she crushes the milkshake. And the blood on Norma's hand is just horrific. It's horrific. She keeps saying she's so happy, so happy. But it's almost like the manic happiness is hiding this sadness inside, and she has had to, you know, raise that happiness to mania levels in order to disguise any other problems that she might be having. We finally see Mike again. When was the last time we saw Mike? I can't actually remember. It kind of makes you remember that Bobby and Mike are school kids. I don't know if it's true about other episodes, but I think in this episode the music seems to be more pervasive. You know, it seems to start at the beginning of a scene and play completely all the way through. I don't know if that's the case in previous episodes, but I just notice it more in this one, I think, for some reason. Okay, so we see Cooper trying to put the pieces of Laura's diary back together. He has a cup of coffee, check, and donuts, check. And he talks about discovering writings which detail the figure of Bob, who Laura has called a threatening presence. Okay, so we get more intonations that Ben Horn is the one that's responsible. The fact that Laura refers to someone as being her father's friend, and then makes this cryptic comment about wanting to tell the world who Ben Horn is. The evidence, you know, against Ben Horn almost seems unsurmountable at this stage. So Cooper, after hearing from Audrey about Ben admitting that he slept with Laura, says that they need a warrant to arrest Benjamin Horn. Ben's dismissive reaction to the police when they come to arrest him, it's very typical of his character. The sense of personal power that he feels he has to be able to try and dismiss the police force. It's almost like he's wiping a fly, he's swatting a fly away. Okay, so again, we cut to a shot of the Palmer household. We see some empty spaces in some very unusual angles, and then we see Mrs. Palmer crawling down the stairs. Clearly something is desperately wrong. There is a really heavy vibe, you know, the record going round and round like that, the deep and dark music in the background, and the endless whirring of that fan. There is a horrible sense of foreboding. Okay, so the log lady turns up at the sheriff's station, and she says to Cooper, I'm not quite sure what's going on, but there are owls at the Roadhouse. And Cooper finally decides that Margaret it has, you know, is not a crazy person. That, you know, previously he sort of treated her as if she was a little bit off it. But now he accepts her message as being legitimate. Yeah, I really like this episode as well because of the fact that a lot of cast members from the early episodes are brought back and we have their coherent stories again, whereas we lost sight of them a little bit in some of the episodes in between there. It just feels more like seeing the whole picture of Twin Peaks rather than just a little slice of Twin Peaks. And this very funny moment when Tojimura is revealed. There's a sweet sort of love between the two of them. Yeah. You just can't you can't explain it, why Catherine and Pete work so well. And then we cut back to the Palmer house again. Sarah Palmer seems to be more and more distressed, and as we see her come into the living room, she looks over and she sees this white horse. I'm not sure what the white horse represents, if it's meant to represent anything at all. I don't know, I think horses for me represent sort of... Oh, sorry about this chair. I've always thought horses represented a sort of sense of nobility and freedom to me. They're sort of very majestic creatures. I don't know what it represents. You know, earlier on, Madeline, when she was talking, she said something like, I'll be galloping back to Twin Peaks. Galloping is obviously a horse term. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it at all. I guess it's up to the individual to interpret it. As soon as we see Leland putting on his tie in the mirror as his wife is lying on the floor, we know that there's something desperately wrong there. That's a very cool angle shot. You know, the neon sign of the Roadhouse shot from the puddle angle. It's a very, very clever and cool way with the beer bottles lying there. It just gives you an instant sense of where we are. And this sequence of scenes that are coming up, I think, are the greatest scenes in Twin Peaks. You know, James and Donna are talking at the Roadhouse, and Donna, she's obviously very upset about what's happened to Harold, and she feels responsible, which is fair enough. I think Julie Cruz's contribution to this scene can't be underestimated. She has this beautiful fairy tale voice. It's like a voice from another place almost, you know, and to hear her vocals in the background of this Roadhouse scene, it's very atmospheric and captivating. So there's still a little bit of lingering sort of jealousy, I guess. Jealousy on Donna's behalf, attraction on James' behalf with Madeline, because they are still talking about it, and Donna makes a point that Madeline never said anything to James about leaving. You know, seeing the log lady sitting there with these two distinguished lawmen is kind of funny, but it leads you into a place where you aren't expecting the scene to go. Likewise with Donna, when she starts singing, it seems like a happy moment. It seems like a moment of freedom and release. And then, of course, everything is set to change. The music takes a darker and darker turn, and everything feels generally more solemn. We keep getting these shots of the sailors at the bar, like the sailors are, you know, obviously on leave or whatever, and we see them desperately trying to grasp onto good times. I really think, you know, this close-up as Julie Cruz is singing, we get a close-up of Cooper, and he seems very moved, and almost as if he's gone into some kind of meditative state. Light appears on his face, indicating that something is happening. And of course the giant appears on the stage. It's not clear, I don't think, who else can see the giant, although we do see the log lady's face change a little bit, as if perhaps she's aware of it. There is a little bit of urgency in the giant's message when he relays it to Cooper. We fade out back to the Palmer household, and the moment when Leland is looking at himself in the mirror, and we flash back, and there we see Bob. We see him turn around, and he has this terrible look of hunger, I guess, on his face. It's like the big bad wolf. You know, he looks like he wants to devour something. I think it's a great reveal, and the way that it's set up, it unfolds so well. So dramatic, so scary. To see Leland transformed like that, I mean, even after Leland killed, like, Jacques, I felt sympathy towards him. You can't help but feel sympathy towards this guy for losing his daughter, for being such a nice guy, for being the happy, singing sort of Leland. And then all of a sudden, we get this Leland, and he's the most... he's terrifying. Leland as Bob, or Bob as Leland, is more terrifying, I think, than just Bob on his own. And then Madeline comes down the stairs and she's in the spotlight, you know, as if we're seeing only from Bob/Leland's perspective, as if this is the target. This moment when Leland chases Madeline up the stairs and they disappear from view, and all we hear is the screams and the bangs. It's pretty disturbing. Not many scenes, I mean, who sets up a scene like this where the killer and his prey disappear out of sight, and all we can, you know, for a second we have to imagine what's going on, what kind of horrific things are going on before he drags her back into the room. Jeez. Even by today's standards, this scene where Leland/Bob attacks Madeline is pretty hardcore. Sorry. Oh, it's kind of draining, isn't it? Especially what the punches. They're so they are hard punches. You know, it's a kind of horrific, realistic kind of violence. Very, very disturbing. We see the scene spinning as if it's from Madeline's perspective, and realize the kind of pain and confusion that she must be experiencing. And then we have these horrible close-ups of Bob really like feeding off Madeline, sort of like sucking her face in a sexual kind of way, but also in a way that's sort of like preparing the meal for digestion, you know what I mean? It's sort of horrendous. We get this sort of schizophrenic type behavior from Leland, where he's 1 second he's crying and calling out for his daughter, and the next we hear from this perspective of Bob, who suddenly says, Leland says, you're going back to Missoula. Sorry. We see Leland inserting this piece of paper into Madeline's fingernail, which connects her to the other murder victims. When we return to the Roadhouse, there is an overwhelming sense of sadness and regret. We see the concierge from the hotel approach Cooper, and at this point there is some kind of connect with, I think we're supposed to gauge the connection between the concierge and the giant figure. The fact that maybe the giant figure is using the old concierge as his host. If so, does the concierge know this? It's difficult to say. He approaches Cooper and he apologizes, as if he does know, as if he's aware of what the giant knows. I think the lyrics of this song as well are very well placed in this scene, talking about elements that are difficult to touch and to fathom, talking about mysteries of the world. I feel so sad for Cooper here because he just looks so crestfallen, as if he understands what's happened. And you know what kind of person he is at this stage in the series, and you know that his whole being, his whole life, and it's trying to stop this kind of hideous violence and evil, and it's just heartbreaking to see Cooper in this. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. Sorry. Just missed. Sorry. I got a little bit carried away there with the emotions of the scene. Okay. We see Bobby as well, and he looks really sorry. Okay, I've got it together now, and we see Bobby. He looks equally hollowed out almost. It's like he understands something even, and Donna is crying too. It's like the main characters all seem to understand that something really terrible has happened. We end the episode with Cooper looking exceptionally upset. It's an episode that really takes it out of you, and I apologize for getting so upset at the end there. Honestly, I've seen that episode dozens of times, and I don't usually get that upset. I guess it was just like analysing it a little more and really looking at it that made me feel very upset there. I was pretty young when that aired, and it was very shocking, that scene with Madeline being brutalized like that. And I still think by today's standards it's like one of the most horrific violent scenes you could ever see on TV, and it feels so, you know, the violence of it feels so realistic, I think. And I think it's like looking at violence under a magnifying glass almost, the way that scene is shot. It's horrendous, but it's great television, obviously. So yeah, that's a really great episode of Twin Peaks. I would say the best. And obviously David Lynch and Mark Frost wanted to make that episode special because of the fact that they were asked to reveal the killer of Laura Palmer. So I feel emotionally drained right now. Next time I'm going to be rewatching the movie Fire Walk with Me. A while ago I saw someone on social media or something say that the way they like to rewatch the entire Twin Peaks collection was to play the movie after this episode, like it was, because it sort of acts like a flashback. However, as somebody pointed out, this probably isn't the best way to watch it if you are a new viewer, if you are just starting to watch the show, because of the fact that the movie contains a couple of scenes which reference future episodes in Twin Peaks. So it's probably best to leave the movie until the end as it was made originally, if you are a new viewer. But if you are a seasoned viewer like me, I really like watching it this way. You can even, if you can't get enough, watch the movie again at the end of the series, so that it sort of all gels together. So yeah, I will be watching Fire Walk with Me next. So my rewatch video might be a two-parter because of the fact that the movie is obviously a little longer than the typical Twin Peaks episode. If you'd like to comment below to tell me what you think of this episode. I know that it's an episode that is really brings out a lot of feelings in Twin Peaks fans and viewers in general. and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I've been loving to hear anybody's comments on the other rewatch videos that I've done, and to give me their theories on things. I'm finding it very enlightening and interesting. So if you have anything to say, go ahead and leave your comment below. I'm also on Twitter if you want to follow me on there just for updates. I'm at the Log Sadie on Twitter. And in the coming few weeks, I was also thinking about, there hasn't been much news coming out from about the new 2017 series, and I have been, so my news videos have stalled a little bit, so I was thinking of doing some personal videos, kind of like a storytelling thing about some of the things that have happened to me in my life because of having watched Twin Peaks. I've got a few stories that are mildly interesting, I guess. There is, of course, the book is coming out. Mark Frost's book is coming out in about 4 months' time, I think. And so there will be a lot to talk about then. But until then, I'm going to keep on doing the rewatches and maybe some of these storytime videos as well. So if you want to look out for them, you can subscribe to the channel if you want to, if you're interested in any of that. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.